Today, I'm going to be talking about the game that made me the crazy Sooner fan that I am today. It was the very first game that I got to attend in Norman. It was the 1971 OU Nebraska game of the century, where I witnessed probably two of the best running backs and quarterback combinations I ever seen up up to that point. But first, I'm going to have Coach Switzer to give us a pep talk. Take it away, Coach.
Big Eight Conference. For the last 14 years, we win today. We'll have won 11 Big Eight Conference championships. Everybody reading the Southwest Conference, they talk about Texas in the last 10, 12 years has won 2 Southwest Conference. Houston 3. A&M finally won them 1 in 18 years. People don't know what it is to be champions. Oklahoma invented it.
Boy, if that don't get your blood pumping, nothing will. So, thank you for pulling up, tuning into my channel. I'm your host of Sooner Legends podcast, the legend, Mike Wilkerson. I took a week off. The Toby Keith thing kind of put me down in the mouth, and losing him just broke my heart. So I took a week off from recording any videos. So I appreciate those who have stuck with my channel, and greatly appreciated. But you all know the drill. Uh, if you like my content, hit the like button. And if this is the kind of content that you like, hit the subscriber button and your post notification bell. That way you won't miss any content that I will be uploading in the future. So, the 1971 game of the century played between OU and Nebraska at Norman in 1971 at Norman, Oklahoma. Your head coaches for OU at that time was uh, Chuck Fairbanks, and Nebraska's head coach was Bob Devaney. And of course, Barry Switzer was an assistant coach on the OU side, and the legendary Tom Osborne was assistant for Bob Devaney for Nebraska. And like I said, it was played on Thanksgiving Day, November 25th, 1971. Nebraska was ranked number 1, OU was ranked number 2. Both were undefeated going into that game. The Sooners was led by All-American quarterback Jack Mildren, who rushed for over 1,000 yards, along with Heisman Trophy candidate halfback Greg Pruitt, who averaged 9.5 yards per carry, and also split in John Harrison and Tom Brahaney anchoring the offense at center. The Husker offense was led by flanker Johnny Rogers, who was just one of the most awesome people. As a Sooner fan, I marveled at him. That man could do more things than I'd ever seen anybody do. And he was also a future Heisman Trophy winner. And the trigger man for that game was senior quarterback Jerry Taggy and senior tailback Jeff Kinney. And of course, one of my all-time favorite defensive players for OU played in that game, and that was defensive lineman Derlin Moore. He was actually a defensive tackle, but he was All-American, and he was also a future NFL Pro Bowler. Now, a funny little side note. If y'all remember when I did my last Bud Wilkinson video, I told y'all about 1959 when the OU players got food poisoning, and they still had to play that game in a monsoon. Well, in this particular game, to make sure that the sports bettors wasn't getting into whatever hotel it was and poisoning their food to give them the Nebraska Cornhuskers their food to keep them from getting food poisoning. Bob Devaney had all his players' food flown in from Lincoln, Nebraska. It's kind of funny, ain't it? Now, like I said, I had to go back and watch the game on YouTube just to refresh my mind, and I didn't break the whole game down. I I just did the highlights of the game, etc. So the first half of that game was a typical OU Nebraska game, just two bull of the woods going in, knocking the hell out of each other. The Huskers' offense was slowed down by Oklahoma's underrated defense, but Oklahoma's explosive wishbone attack was not operating as well as, and Nebraska's defense was just causing all kinds of hate and discontent, and forced OU with three fumbles. Two was in the first half. And another thing OU couldn't stop that game was that big Husker nose guard, Rich Glover. Got it. He was a beast in that game. He actually ended up with 22 tackles, and that was despite lining up against our All-American center, Tom Brahaney. The first score was Johnny Rogers on a 72-yard punt return where he zigzagged. There's a lot of fans out there my age and a little older would tell you that there was a clipping call, should have been a clipping call on that play, but there wasn't. But I digress. Go watch the game and tell me if you didn't see a clip. But Oklahoma answered with a field goal, which took the score to 7-3. And but both teams exchanged TD drives. First, Nebraska to take a 14-3 lead, which was the largest of the game that day, and then Oklahoma scored to make the score 14-10 with 5:40 left in the half. And then Jack Mildren, our godfather of the wishbone, grabbed a 17-14 lead with two long passes to split in John Harrison with 5 seconds left before halftime. And for the first time that game, OU led, and that was the first time that season that Nebraska trailed. Nebraska goes in the halftime, makes adjustments, and they came out relying on a power run. And the Huskers scored 2 touchdowns. The first was aided by our third and last fumble of the game to lead 28-17 with 3:38 left to play in the third quarter. And of course, Jack Mildren led the Sooners back with a pair of TDs, and Oklahoma was back ahead 31-28 with 7:10 left to play in the game. Then Nebraska got the ball back on their own 26-yard line, and they made it up to the 48-yard line where all hell broke loose. Husker quarterback Taggy hits Johnny Rogers on a pass play. And like I said, Nebraska was at the Oklahoma 48, Oklahoma 48-yard line. Taggy hits Johnny Rogers, and he does Johnny Rogers things. He goes to breaking tackles, weaving and shucking and jiving, and he got it all the way down deep into Oklahoma territory at the 15-yard line. And then that's when Husker tailback Jeff Kinney took over, which he was a hell of a player in his own right. And he finished that game with 171 yards on 31 carries, and then 4 consecutive carries. The fourth carry here, it resulted in his fourth touchdown of the day. And Nebraska regained the lead 35-31 with about 3 minutes and 8 seconds left. And of course, Jack gets sacked on 3rd and 4th down, and we lost the game. Now, what happened? Nebraska went on to win a national championship that year, and Oklahoma, our consolation was going to play Auburn in the Sugar Bowl. And of course, Auburn had Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Pat Sullivan, and we did nothing more than beat the hell out of Auburn 44-20 for that Sugar Bowl win. So the final stats of the game is, let's see, rushing yards. Well, first downs, Nebraska had 19, OU had 22. Nebraska rushed 59 times for 297 yards. OU rushed 64 times for 279 yards. Nebraska's passing yards was 65 yards. OU's was 188. Nebraska went 6-13 with no interceptions. OU was 6 of 11 with no interceptions. Total yards, Nebraska was 362. OU was 467. Nebraska lost 1 fumble, and OU lost 3. I feel that was the biggest decider of that game, was OU turning the ball over 3 times. You can't turn the ball over 3 times and expect to win, especially against a team like Nebraska was back in those days. And the penalties of that game, Nebraska had 1 penalty for 5 yards. OU, none. We didn't have a flag thrown on us in that game. So, in summarization, I said at the first of the video that I witnessed 2 of the best players on that field. One of them being Johnny Rogers from Nebraska. The other one was Jack Mildren, godfather of the wishbone, and of course Greg Pruitt for OU, and then Kenny from Nebraska. I watched 2 legendary coaches go head to head in a chess match that ultimately led to Nebraska's victory. It was an exciting game for me from what I remember. Like I said, it was my first game I ever attended, and it made me this crazy Sooner fan that I am today. And so that's going to do it for this segment of Sooner Legends podcast. Like I said, if you don't mind, on your way out, could you hit the like button? And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, because I will be dropping a boatload of content this week on OU. And I have a lot of historical stuff in my playlist. And as always, I thank you for stopping by. And I have 135 subscribers now, so this channel's growing a little bit. So hop down in the comments, and if you happen to watch the game that day or you was in attendance, tell me what your memory was of that game. And until next time, be nice to everybody. You don't know if tomorrow's promised. This is the legend. We'll see you on the backside. God bless.